Hello guys and welcome to the video. So today we're going to be taking a look at the Hall of Heroes Returns Part 2 event. It's part of the 9th anniversary special, and not too long ago we did, the first part, which was pretty good. I like that because it let us choose between two very good units. For anyone who didn't watch the first one, there are a couple rules that are going to apply to this video, or that were applied in the last one, where we won't choose between the fire, water, wind, because just generally these fire, water, and wind units are much more easier to obtain. You could obtain them literally any day of the week, versus the light and dark units. You have to have the light dark scrolls, which if you played the game for any amount of time, is much more difficult to get. You get more mystical scrolls than you do light dark scrolls. So you want to go for rarity in this case, because again, the chances of you getting the other three, the Dryad, the Neostone Agent, or the Sniper, are much higher than of you getting the light Joker or the dark Succubus. Generally they are. And another thing is, the Neostone Agent and the Dryad are fusible. So the only other monster that you have to get by luck, other than the two LDs, is a Sniper. You can literally fuse the Neostone Agent and the Dryad any day of the week. So it's really out of the question. So today we're going to be looking at the skills of the Light Joker and the Succubus. The Light Joker goes by the name of Figo, and the Succubus goes by the name Azael, or Izael. Well, I don't know, however you want to pronounce it. And let's go take a look at the monster collection. Okay, so again, we're starting off with Figo. One thing to note is he has some pretty decent HP, and that's about it. Everything else is pretty normal. He has a Dungeons Leader skill, Resistance 40%, which is whatever. First skill, he disturbs the enemy's HP recovery for 2 turns. It's a single target, single hit. Second skill, summons a surprise box that inflicts damage and grants 1 random harmful effect among stun, glancing hit, and attack speed decrease to all enemies every 3 turns when he attacks. And again, it's every 3 turns. Or sorry, not when he attacks, when it's fully skilled up. I'm just rambling, at this point. So single hit AoE, which is pretty good. Passive is removes 1 beneficial effect from the targeted enemy and installs a bomb for 2 turns with a 25% chance every time you perform an attack. In addition, cancels incoming damage with a 25% chance. So off the bat, I'm going to say this. I don't know which dungeons you would be using Figo in. I don't know. You could, but I just don't know why. Right? It's just like, we can go through the list. You're not using him in Giants. You're not using him in Dragons. You can. I'm not stopping you. I don't think anyone's stopping you, but it's just there's no reason. Same thing with Necro. Steel Fortress Punishers. I just don't see why. Trial of Ascension. You're not using... you can. I don't see why you wouldn't be able to, but it's just... It's very... it's very, iffy, right? I don't know. I think Trial of Ascension, maybe. But you're mainly using him in either Arena, Trial of Ascension, or Guild content, which... Now that you're bringing him in Guild let's say you bring him in any of those areas, what's the purpose of you bringing him, right? More likely than anything, he's a stripper, plus he has bombs. Pretty good, pretty straight up right there. So he has his own built-in strip, which is pretty nice. I will say that part right there is pretty nice. Installs a bomb for 2 turns with a 25% chance every time he attacks. While that percentage may seem low, this is literally every time he attacks. I would like to really test this guy. I might test him on Revenge runes. It might seem stupid, but I would like to test him on Revenge runes, Violent runes, all that stuff, right? But okay, we're gonna see him in his best light, because if we're talking about his worst light, then it's just like a lot of you are going to just not pick him. But in his best light, he's stripping all enemies, and he's placing bombs a ton, right? Which can be very big. So assuming that, you know, he's going to perform in his best light a decent majority of the time, a decent part of the time, I would say he's definitely like a 6.5, maybe a 7 out of 10. I mean, he has potential. I think it really is dependent on quite a few things, but I think Figo is pretty good. He's not bad. I'm trying to be positive about it. Let's move on to the next unit, and then we'll make our decision, right? So next we're at Izael. So with Izael, she actually has more attack than him and a little bit more speed, like 3 base speed more, but still notable, right? She has an arena defense lead, and let's look at her skills. Attacks the enemy without waking them up. If the enemy is awake, she can put the enemy to sleep for 1 turn with a 50% chance, and recovers the attack bar by 50% if the enemy falls asleep after the attack. So she can attack enemies that are sleeping without awakening them, and if she does put an enemy to sleep, 50% attack bar is pretty good. I think that's really, really good. Attacks without waking up the enemy that's under sleep. So that's going to be all of their skills, right? All the succubuses will never wake up an enemy that's already asleep. Attacks without waking up the enemy that's under sleep replaces up to 3 beneficial effects granted on the target with either sleep, glancing hit, or defense decrease for 2 turns each every 3 turns. So a multi-hit single target strip, which is pretty nice. And she replaces the debuff. So it's not a strip, but it replaces the buff with a debuff, which is probably even better. Attacks without waking up the enemy that's under sleep. Attacks all enemies to disturb their HP recovery for 2 turns with a 75% chance. If the enemy is under sleep, this attack will deal damage that ignores 50% of the enemy's defense every 4 turns. That is really interesting, that 3rd skill. So she has the potential for big damage, or at least pretty decent cleave damage. So here's where the problems lie with the succubus. I love that skill set. That skill set on paper looks like really good, but at the end of the day, you got to realize one thing. It's all about sleep, right? Sleeping the enemy. So I want to kind of look at something real quick. Just like sleep. You guys have probably seen it already, and okay, here it is. So the Hypnomeows is like one of the first units that come to mind that you would pair her up with. That or other succubus, or other succubi, however you want to call it. You get other units like, I guess, like Annabelle. So skill 1 does sleep, but her other attacks can wake them up. Triana, she can put units to sleep, but her attacks can wake them up, as far as I'm aware. This is I like that. Okay. Hathor. Okay, I was thinking of So it's just like, you kind of realize for her to do her, this is, okay, so I'm just stalling at this point. You got to realize that for her to do her best, absolute best, and for her to just be absolutely crazy in her, in her best light, you have to run a sleep team. Meaning that you got to run her with other succubuses or like units like Hathor or whatever. Like, for her to do that ignored defense, all enemies have to be asleep, right? You have to be coming in with a sleeping team, right? A sleeper team. So my question is, how often are you going to be running a sleeper team versus like a team with Figo, which is like a bomber team? And the question, or the answer maybe, is like you're running a bomber team more than you're running a sleeper team. Now, Izael's, I think, pretty decent. I mean, you get her, if you do finally decide to run that sleeper team, it's just like, no doubt, is she going to do pretty decent damage. I mean, you could like run like Hathor, her, and then whomever else, and bring her either in guild content or in arena if you wanted to. I don't see too much of a problem with that. But it's just sleep. It's the whole sleep problem. which, again, with bombs, it's like, I'm not sure. I see, both of these units, it's like they have their own good spots and then they have their own bad spots. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people arguing for the Dark Succubus and then other people arguing for the Light Joker. Me personally, I'm going to be running with the Light Joker. I think the Light Joker is probably better in this case. So the reason I like him a little bit more is because if you can get him running in a decent manner, right? It's like you're getting him, he can strip like a decent majority of the time. You don't have to wait for any cooldowns or anything. He can strip on every attack, which means you could probably have him on a like revenge set. You could probably have him, like if you're going to build him in guild defenses for whatever reason, or you can have him on violent. But it's just, I feel like with him, it's like I would use him more. That's what I'm also thinking about. It's like, who would I use more? It's like the Succubus would be fun, no doubt. And when you do use her, she's definitely going to do her job. Don't get me wrong. But it's just like with Figo, it's just like I would use him more often. I would use him as a bomber. If I had, what was it? God dang it. Why can't I remember half of these units' names? Sierra? Yeah, if I had Sierra, or Sierra, whatever, it's just, I would use Sierra, right? But it's just like, if I had to use, like, if I was going in guild content or arena content, and I was like, hey, I can't use my Sierra right now, I could run Figo, and I might feel pretty confident. I don't know. I think on paper, Figo looks better to me, but who knows? Maybe in action, Azael, if you decide to run a sleeping team or a sleeper team, it's just like she's better, right? But for me, it's like I'm trying to choose they're both like okay, right? That's the problem. If one of them was clearly better than the other, regardless of how often you'd use them, I'd tell you to choose that one, right? But it's like they're both okay units. So now it comes down to which one are you going to use more, and which one will you get, like, again, more utility out of, which is like Figo you would use more. You wouldn't really use Azael in any of the dungeons. You would maybe use her in Trial of Ascension. But Figo, I think, comes in handy more, right? If you bring them into Trial of Ascension, it's like Figo can place, the bombs and he can strip, right? But for her, it's like, while she can strip as well, it's a single target strip. And she's not sleeping the boss. And it's just, again, guild content, you'd have to have a specific team, or like the amount of teams that you would have for both units is drastically different, right? Figo will have more teams than her. I don't know. To me, I'm gonna be completely honest. I'm so unsure out of the both of these. But in my opinion, like, if I'm gonna go in right now and choose which Hall of Heroes, like, I'm gonna go and farm it, I'm gonna choose Figo. Because I know I'm going to get more usage out of him. And that's kind of what I want. But, I don't know. I'm curious as to what you guys think. So, my choice is, or my opinion is, choose Figo and the Hall of Heroes. But, I'm curious to think what you guys would rather choose, or what you guys are choosing in this Hall of Heroes. Put it down in the comment section. I don't know. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.